All right. Hello. Welcome back. It is
Hello.
another week on the Mover and Gonky show. We are going to dispense with pleasantries. I think that's the word. And we have a guest. I did the video today of the NTSB report on the B-17 and P-63 collision. They had their probable cause. A viewer reached out to me and said, hey, that's not the whole story. So we'd like to welcome aviation photographer Ryan Short, who was there at the time
Hey, Ryan.
of the mishap and has some amplifying data. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks. Long time listener and appreciate your show.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. So we talked about the probable cause on my channel and basically the NTSB, and we'll go over it, after. I know you're kind of crunched for time.
Not too bad.
There was some stuff though that you witnessed and you said, hey, that's not the whole story. So tell us from your perspective what you saw and kind of, where you differed from the final report.
Okay, so just for background, Dallas Executive Redbird is my home airport. So I'm very familiar with everything, been there for about 9 years. And so I've been to every Wings Over Dallas show that's been there. And one of the things that initially stood out as missing in the NTSB report was the fact that the day before, on Friday, they typically have a bunch of school kids out. They typically have a practice show. And the year of the accident, there was a lot of severe weather on Thursday and Friday, especially Friday. And so they didn't run the practice show at all. Basically, everybody was in the hangars, hung out with the guys with the B-24, the P-63. I even have a picture of my kids with the P-63. And so nobody flew on Friday. And so everybody was really and truly doing the whole run through for the air show the first time on Saturday when it happened.
Wow.
So that's
the mishap was the first time they had done that.
Right. And typically they practice more beforehand. They have kind of a looser show. Everything's a little bit less tight, a little bit more relaxed. And so I feel like that being missed on Friday certainly didn't help things. At the same time, you got a lot of people there who had run it in previous years. If you look up on YouTube, Eric Johnson, who's a photographer friend, you can see the videos show from the previous year, and they had twice as many airplanes and did a great job. So, I think you have a situation where you have a lot of familiarity. You have people who generally know what they're trying to do and what they expect to do, but then they don't actually get to do the practice. They don't actually, things just aren't working as well.
Was it the Air Boss's first show?
No, definitely not. He was there at least the previous 2 years. And everybody, all the pilots that I know, and I know some of the pilots, I know the guy was in one of the seats of the B-24. I know some of the Tora pilots. I know a number of the guys. They expressed confidence in the Air Boss, and the Air Boss did a great job. I was actually on the flight line taking photos next to the runway the previous year. And I can tell you, if I had felt unsafe, I'd have been, out of there as fast as I could get.
Right.
So, and that's the other thing too, is I think that the weather situation also caused a sense of maybe there not being as many airplanes. And so we got to fly a tighter show and keep the crowds happy. And that, to me, that's also a contributing factor.
So the day of the mishap, did you go to the brief? Like, was there a mass briefing?
I did go to that briefing that morning. I actually was going to brief with some of the photographers. I actually thought one of my friends was on board the B-17 because we were talking about where the photographers were going to be, who could help where. And I ended up shooting photos next to the Air Boss's stand. So.
Okay, so you're right there. And so walk us through kind of the mishap sequence and what you saw.
Can I start back a little bit earlier in the day?
As far as you want, go ahead.
Okay, so earlier in the day was actually a really happy time for a bunch of people at CEF. Buddy Cooksey was one of the CEF headquarters folks at the time, and it was his finish flight. It was his kind of last hurrah flying the B-17 in an air show. So he flew in the Tora show along with my friend who was a photographer, was on board. and they did a great job. They flew the Tora show. They had the B-17 with all the Tora replicas formed up on it, and they did the wall of fire, and they landed. And I was there when they landed, and they deplaned, took some pictures of the crew, took some pictures of them, all celebrating his last flight. And then shortly thereafter, Tora was taking off, and I actually was over at Tora taking pictures, and I saw Craig over there along with the other guys I was actually interviewing, a friend of mine, as we walked to the Tora planes. And so it was just, it was just a normal day. Everybody there was doing their best to be on their game, and it was very good, clear weather. And then actually one of the men who was on the B-17 when it crashed was a combat veteran who had flown in probably that very plane during the Korean War out of Japan.
Oh,
or
wow.
maybe Okinawa. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a story that hasn't made it out yet, but he gave a fantastic 15-minute interview as they were flying, all telling everything about the B-17 and about its service with the Navy as basically an early AWACS.
Wow.
And
what position what crew member was he? Do you remember?
I forget if he was a radio operator or something like that, but he had flown actual missions in combat in those PB-1, whatever they were, aircraft there in Korea.
Wow.
So that was all very emotional because I actually, knew some of the people on board the aircraft. The day of the accident flight. So one of the things that's been highly criticized is the altitude deconfliction.
Yep.
And that, I get it. I get the criticism, but you have to understand the big question is then why would experienced pilots, why would experienced airshow pilots, why would guys who have 30,000 hours in the airlines not call it as a safety factor? And I think the thing that keeps getting missed is this is actually a fairly normal show for them. So typically what's going to happen at these shows is you have a sort of a pseudo display where the bombers are flying fairly low. And then you have the fighters stacked 300 feet above them. And I've actually flown in a situation like this in wings over Houston personally. And the expectation is, they're kind of going to simulate the combat first. And then what's going to happen is they're going to break everybody out into trail, and everybody is supposed to pass, one aircraft at a time past a crowd. And the point of that is to get photos. And so when you hear the air boss tell the fighters to go to the 500-foot line, that makes total sense to me as a photographer, because he's putting the fighters closer to the crowd so that they can get a better picture, where the bombers are going the 1,000-foot line and they're twice as big as far as aircraft are concerned. So it makes sense for camera angles and everything to have the fighters closer and the bombers a little farther away for deconfliction. My personal opinion is that the air boss probably got distracted by the steerman coming in. And I think that, the ride revenue stuff, that's a big factor. And I don't think enough has been said about that. And the thing is, okay, why didn't he just tell the steerman to circle for a few more minutes? Well, there's the pressure, because the shorter the flight on the revenue rides, then the more profitable it is.
Yeah.
So, don't leave the steerman hanging out there, right?
Ryan, is the air boss, is he a pilot? Do you know? Does he fly sometimes?
He's a private pilot. I've met him. I know Russ.
But I mean, does he partake sometimes in the air show stuff?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
But he grew, his father is well known for decades, 20, 30 years. And I know a lot of people said nepotism, but it's like, hey, he's seen all these shows for 20 years. Sure. Who's better than him? It's like, okay, so you want to criticize, but who's better?
I was just curious. If he had that frame of mind when he's directing the airplanes. That's all.
Well, I think the ride stuff is fairly new, and most of the shows like Wings Over Houston don't do that. Dallas is a fairly unique air show in that regards. And the irony of it all is that I was actually the ops commander for one of the CDF squadrons at headquarters, Redbird Squadron, for a while.
Wow.
And I overheard conversations where they were trying very, very hard to make it a safe show. That's, one of the things you'll notice about if you go back and look at all the history of the Redbird Air Show or Wings Over Dallas. They don't have any jet teams. They don't have any high power aerobatics for the most part. They might have 2 acro acts, like a Stearman and a P-51, or the year before the P-63. But they actually tried very hard to do things that would be relatively safe, relatively quiet for the neighborhood. And most of it was supposed to be boring passes by the crowd. And I think that led to a sense of complacency, like we're trying so hard to be safe that we actually got unsafe.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you, as far as the actual, when it happened, I mean, were you observing, did the air boss seem overwhelmed, or did it just seem like a normal, just everyday kind of deal?
It seemed normal and every day, but I thought that things were off. I wasn't with him. Like I couldn't just talk to him, but I felt like something was off. I did notice the Stearman coming in, even got a few photographs of the Stearman's landing. And I felt like the timing was off at some point in that turn. And you could see it from the ground. But one thing I think people don't realize is that turn was pretty far away from the air boss's stand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was probably, and I'm not trying to put blame, I'm not trying to assign blame. I'm just trying to explain from a pilot's perspective, doing the photography, what I think happened. I think there was some division of attention because of the Stearman landing. And then I think when you hear the air boss ask Gunfighter if he has the bombers in sight, I think basically he felt like he was handing off deconfliction to Gunfighter. And so with Gunfighter saying he had the bombers in sight, I think he expected, P-51 lead to actually then keep his flight clear.
Is that the expectation that the P-63 is he expecting the P-51 guy to do all the deconfliction for him, or are they individually responsible?
I don't know that, but I can tell you, having flown some formation stuff, that you've got to keep your eyes on the leader for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically trying to then space out, and going from echelon right to trail, they're trying to figure out how far apart they want to be from each other as they pass by the crowd. So it would make sense that they're, throttling back, letting the P-51 ahead of them get farther ahead. P-51-2 is spacing off of the P-51 in the front, and the P-63 is tailing Charlie, so he's kind of getting whiplash. Yeah. And I also think that the P-63 pilot, Craig, he was flying the P-64 replica, with a Hawk replica is what they call it, in the Tora show. So he was extremely familiar with the crowd lines. He had flown a perfect show as far as I was concerned during the Tora. And so he knew the 500-foot line really well, because he had been zooming up and down chasing zero on that same crowd line about 40 minutes before. So when I think the one thing that that also strikes me as odd is the briefings, or the debriefings, the testimony that the NTSB has talked about the fact that Gunfighter was confused about the pilot flying Gunfighter was a little confused by the air boss's instructions, which I kind of find odd, because to me it's like, well, duh, he was trying to bring him to the 500-foot line for pictures. And I kind of think that probably Craig, having just flown the line and the Hawk for the Tora show, he's like, hey, he told us to go to the 500-foot line, and that to me is the most simple, logical explanation for why his flight path was the way it was.
What was the aftermath like in the community in general, towards the air boss? Is it like the public where, everybody's up in arms, or has it kind of been, rallied together and nobody assigns blame?
So let me talk about the immediate aftermath, and then the aftermath that I feel like I've experienced. The immediate aftermath was just, you could hear him saying, knock it off, roll the trucks. And the crowd was just stunned, because number one, from where I was, I couldn't even tell that it was a collision at first, because it was so far away from the crowd center. you just see the B-17 kind of float down like a leaf and explode. And everybody's like, what happened? What happened? Was that part of the show? And then, the crowd just started dispersing immediately. And within probably 30 minutes, there was nobody on the flight line. Just nobody was there. And I did actually talk to a couple people, including the steerman pilot and the air boss afterwards at the hangar. I actually picked up some stuff and took it back to headquarters, and I live nearby, so I was like, I'm not in a hurry to get out of this mad rush of traffic. The steerman pilot actually felt the heat from the B-17 explosion, didn't think the passenger saw anything. And the air boss was in a, he was in a mood that I would just describe as probably in shock and probably also a little bit of disbelief himself.
Yeah.
And I really feel bad for him, because I really don't think, it's one of those things like, you never think you're gonna, like, for instance, like maybe negligently discharge a gun or something.
Right.
And it's like, that could never happen to me. But then it's like, well, that just happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to describe it. I did actually go to the B-17 pilot's funeral. The air boss was there, and everybody was cordial to him and treated him with respect.
Yeah.
And I don't think that most of the pilots, I think most of the pilots understand that there's a lot of Swiss cheese involved. There's a lot of, everything just lined up the wrong way.
Right.
And it was a really bad day.
What kind of is he like in civilian world? Is he like an air traffic controller or anything, or no, he's not like,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you too long. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we let you get back to your meeting?
Well, there's something you actually said to me one time when I texted you about it, is everybody wants to have a villain. And in this case, I think there's a lot of things that happened that kind of all lined up the wrong way, and any one of them could have broken the chain, and unfortunately didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing I take away as a pilot is that, you could be a really experienced, really good pilot. You could have done something 100 times, but complacency can kill you.
Yeah.
And presumption, like everybody presumed that everybody else was doing everything right. If the air boss presumed that the P-51 pilot had his flight clear, if the P-51 presumed that the air boss had a good visual on him, it just everything ended up being too many presumptions, and nobody was able to make the realization that, hey, something's going to go badly wrong.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Awful. Well, thank you for
thanks, Ryan. That's awesome, man.
Thank you for doing that.
My hope is just some experienced pilots will take this and say, hey, I need to be less complacent in everything that I do.
Yeah, for sure.
Amen.
Well, we appreciate you coming on to tell the rest of the story. We're going to cover the animation, let Gonky, because he's done some air show stuff, let him weigh in. But thank you for your time, and I appreciate you coming on short notice. And we just appreciate you.
Yeah,
Love your show.
All right, man. Have a good one, Ryan.
Have a good one. Take care. All right, Gonky. We'll just continue this segment, and then we'll get back to the original "Hey, how you doing?" part. So I've got the animation right here.
Yep.
And we'll just play, dude. I'm going to kind of let you talk, since I've already done a video on this. And if we see anything, we'll talk about it. Obviously, we know what happened. We know the players involved. So I'm going to skip to the 500-foot show line, the 1,000-foot show line,
and 1,000 feet away from the crowd.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, there's a bit of an echo, but I mean,
how about now?
Sounds okay now.
There's no sound.
I don't hear anything now. Sounds good.
The airplanes in the air show
were
all historic former military airplanes.
Perfect.
They were organized into a bomber group and a fighter formation. The bomber group was led by the accident bomber, a Boeing B-17G Flying Fortress, called Raiders or Texas Raiders on the radio. The B-17 was followed by a B-24 Liberator, an SB-2C Helldiver,
That's surprising. They put them in
Yeah.
with the bombers.
one B-25J
Yeah.
Mitchell,
I've flown with the
and a second
Helldiver.
B-25J Mitchell.
Have you really?
Yeah,
The
it's
trailing
big. It's
B-25
big.
was not broadcasting position data. The fighter formation was led by a P-51D Mustang called Gunfighter on the radio,
That's a cool call sign.
followed
That's a
by a
cool call sign.
P-51C Mustang,
The D looks better.
and
It
the
does,
accident
above the
fighter, a
canopy.
P-63F King Cobra.
So I brought this up
A
originally.
revenue flight and a Boeing PT-17 was also being directed by
But
the Air
that
Boss
P63
and
does
landed
not
on
look
runway
like it's got
31 just before the
visibility.
accident. The PT-17
Yeah,
was
it's not
called
as good as
Quebec
the
on the
Mustang.
radio. The airshow performance relied on real-time directives from the Air Boss. The Air Boss preferred not to assign altitudes and expected the pilots to maintain separation visually.
Pause
During
it.
the air show, the fighters generally
So it says he preferred not to assign altitudes. I wonder if, and I should ask Ryan, but I wonder if they have more than one Air Boss, and if that's something they sometimes do, or you know what I'm saying? It's kind of weird that he
Oh,
says.
you mean like a technique?
Yeah,
Procedure?
yeah,
What
exactly.
I mean, what did you do? I mean, you've done air shows. What's the
Well, yeah, the separation is either timing or altitude or both. And
Oh, really? So it's like red air. It's you had a deconfliction.
yeah, so like sometimes you really can't do altitude deconfliction. In my mind, the one show that we did that, because the airspace was so tight, was Navy Fleet Week there in San Diego. They wanted us to fly like right between Coronado and basically the airport there, International Airport, Point Loma, and we all funneled into right. If you can remember, I don't know if you've ever flown out of there, but it's pretty tight. We just follow the seaway there, makes just basically like a backward sea out into the ocean, and it was all timing. And we had a stack out over the water, and that's how we executed, and we were all at the same altitude. But so that was timing, and then Air Show St. Louis, it was both timing and altitude. So there was multiple fly paths of various aircrafts, so photographers could take pictures. But then, for example, myself and the Corsair had a little coordinated show after the individual shows that we did. And so we'd have to rejoin. So we had our own deconfliction plan as far as location, where we're going to join, and altitude, and how that was all going to play out. And we made sure that it didn't have any conflicts with any of the other players in the event. But when he said there, it sounds to me like that maybe sometimes they do, and it may be airspace dependent or the type of show. Like, it was good to hear Ryan on there. It looks like there's a Tora show. There's I assume this was probably a photo op kind of.
Yeah, this looks like the circle of wagons at the end, just kind of,
parade the
this
horses.
was the everybody drops their pack just so we can get pictures, and that's unfortunately where stuff happened.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, man. Go ahead and play it. I was just curious.
No, this is why you're
flew
here.
higher than 1,000 feet above the ground, and the bombers generally flew below 1,000 feet. However, during the final maneuver, the fighters descended to gain speed to cross in front of the bombers as directed. The following animation will combine the recorded radio communications and the global positioning system based ground tracks. Altitude above the ground is shown next to the legend for the two colliding airplanes. The animation begins in the middle of the
Fighters, you can walk your way up to the B-17. I'm going to break y'all out after this. You're going to end up breaking left. So you're going to follow the bombers to the right 90 out, and then you're going to roll back in left and be on the 500-foot line if y'all want to set up an echelon for a break so y'all can get in trail.
So they're opposite direction.
Yeah. And this is where Gunfighter.
Okay, say again for the fighters, that was not clear. Fighters, go echelon right. Go to echelon right. Okay, fighters, echelon right. Okay, B-24, if you can give me a couple of inches and close the gap, I'd appreciate it. B-17, let's keep the turn a little flat for me. And you're coming through on the 1,000-foot line. Here's Roger. American fighters should be in a right turn. You're going to follow the bombers out on a right 90 turn, and then I'm going to roll you back in front of them. Second, I need to drop it down to the deck. Runway 31, clear to land. Clear to land down to the deck. There you go, B-17. Yep, gentle, flat, roll it around, 1,000-foot line. Foot line for Raiders. Fighters, roll it back to the left. Lead, fighter, lead, roll it back to the left, and y'all get in trail. Okay, fighters in trail.
So, Gonky, I got a question.
Yeah.
As somebody who's done this and whatever, me as a dumb, fighter pilot that needs geographical points and all this stuff.
I'm with you, but continue.
If right, we're doing a complete runway swap, and my mind immediately goes to UPT rules, right? Breaking out and all this stuff. Would they not have geographical points for departing and re-entering this pattern, and just tell people to go there?
I mean, they can, but
I mean, like if you had a point here, like Alpha, Bravo, initial, whatever, and you had, okay, B-17 go to initial, P-51s cut the corner. Would that not serve as better than driving people around like yellow gear? Do they do that?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we did that. We had holding areas, but
named points.
Yeah.
Visual references.
Yeah. Yeah. But
I mean, think of Tyndall, right?
Like,
go to X-ray.
Yeah. It kind of like Ryan was alluding to. It sounded like I wonder if any of that would have been doped out if they had an opportunity to practice the day before. Like, hey, like one of the guys notices, like, hey, there's a huge red barn that would make
but this isn't the first air show, so it's not like they needed the day before. That should be like,
yeah, but this is the first parade the horses, right? I mean, before they were doing tour, which is probably a different routine for I imagine there's pyrotechnics.
Yeah,
it's more of a show. I mean, everything you're saying is valid. I don't know, and I wonder if those are things that would have come out, if they would have had a proper brief. But to your point, it would make things like this way less confusing because it's very clear to me. I'm just sitting here at 1G with like lines to look at, and I'm listening the words. And I watched this once before, and I'm listening to the air boss has high SA of what, of what's going on and what he wants. But you and I and anybody who's flown an airplane, that's why I asked Ryan, I was like, was the air boss a pilot? Because, you give me more than like 3 digits of a number to memorize when you're talking to me in an airplane. And what do you say? You know what I'm saying? So
especially like a World War II fighter.
Right. Engine whirring up there, like, I mean, just like vibration and propellers and
right. Not to torque roll it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked if he was a pilot, because he gave a pretty long, detailed explanation of what he wanted. Now I get it, having listened to it a couple times. If you're in this business, it's probably, the same thing as, maintain 270 until established, clear for that. That whole comm that you hear from approach when you're clear for the approach. First time you heard it, you're like, well, what do you say? But now it's, you just know it. So, yeah.
I guess it's easy to do that, but like if I'm like, how do we fix this?
Yeah.
You see this mouse? I'm like,
oh yeah.
I create point alpha here, and I have an initial point, and I say, B-17 go to point alpha. Everybody else go to point, Bravo, with geographical deconfliction. Yeah,
this is super tight though, man. I mean, they're they're max 3 miles from the airport right here.
Yeah. Well, but they're only doing 100 and something knots. It's not a 300 knot.
Yeah. But I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 airplanes in this mix. I mean, that's
I don't mean literally this point. I mean, in general, I would have.
Yeah. You're right.
Points.
And even in the world of, I'm sure that every single one of those airplanes has some sort of
they got
Garmin,
probably.
Right.
Yeah.
So, just much like we did in the T-38, we made points, so even if there's nothing there, you could make a point, call it alpha.
Right.
I mean, to your point, yes, they could have, as far as the weighing the whole risk assessment, maybe they're just so comfortable with the routine they just didn't feel like they needed it. I don't know, man. I mean,
Yep, and gunfighter, look out your left side and find the B-17. See the 17. Yep.
I mean, he's cognizant of the deconfliction, right? He's
oh
like,
yeah,
he's
definitely.
talking him on, so he's not
he's got
like
high
totally
SA.
out to lunch. He sees this. He thinks the conflict is over here. He's trying.
Here you go. Roll it back to the left. I want you to get in front of the bombers. I want you to come
I
through
just
them.
don't see why we had to do all this if you wanted him in front of the bombers. Keep the bomber going and put him.
Yeah.
Was it a
Outside
timing
at the
thing?
runway.
Yeah, so they're turning in now.
Yeah, so the P-63 is on the tail end of the whip way out here.
Yeah.
This is lag BFM, dude. This looks like a BFM set now.
Oh yeah.
Because he's outside the turn circle.
Yep.
In fact, they're about to do offset turn circles.
Wind check now. Winds are estimated 330 at 12 gust 18.
So the PT-17 is, I don't see him as a conflict out here. Do you?
No, but it does.
I mean, maybe taking some brain bites because once they're on initial, as long as he's landing, he's fine.
Nice job, fighters. You're coming.
It does strike me as odd that, I mean, why not? I'd have him spin. I don't know. Hindsight is 2020, but it is a little bit odd because this is kind of the dangerous part of the show, right? You got all these airplanes trying to converge on one general area at relatively close proximity time wise, and then let's just throw in a little revenue steerman here right in the mix. I think it's, is it dangerous? No, but does it muddy the waters a little bit? I think it does.
Yeah, I could see it being a distraction, but as far as is he a deconfliction threat? No,
it's not the reason. It's not the main reason why this.
Through first, that will work out. B-17 and all the bombers on the 1,000-foot line. B-17, you got the fighters in front of you off your left.
Like he's still thinking deconfliction here.
Yeah, he is.
I don't think he can see this. From this vantage point at, what is that, 3-4 miles? It's probably unlikely at 550 to 430 feet he can even see this building.
Nice job, fighters. Come on through. Fighters will be a big pull up and to the right.
Man.
So next question. I mean, that looks like the correct amount of spacing. So as -3, who ultimately owns that deconfliction?
That was the question I had when Ryan was talking. Who holds the hammer for overall SA as far as the airborne players? I think it's really weird, and I've never experienced any flyover or air show where so much of the deconfliction rested on the air boss. To me, when I listened to this the first time, I was like, man, it reminded me of GCI control when I was flying with the MiG-29s. Like the constant telling me where to go, what to do without me having a plan in my head of what's going on. I was lost,
Yeah.
And the P-50, gunfighter coming up and saying, hey, can you say that again? I was like, yeah, dude, if I were you, I'd be lost too.
You make a good point on that. When we as pilots are given too much information, we turn off our brain. You see that at the very beginning of learning how to fly. The difference between flying with an instructor who's telling you what to do versus flying solo, right? You get lazy. Right. And then when you go back with the instructor, sometimes the instructor gets mad, like, hey, how come you're not doing what you're supposed to? It's like, well, because you're going to tell me what to do. And I think when we're driven around like yellow gear, as they say in the Navy, you start to turn those parts off in your brain, and you kind of, like Ryan alluded to, nobody said anything. So I kind of expected it to work because the voice of God is going to save me.
Right. And, there towards the end, it's clear to me the air boss lost the SA bubble because, you and I have talked about, how could the P-63 just belly up? Because, as pilots who've done thousands of rejoins, I don't want to be belly up to anybody, but if you listen to his comm, he's like, hey, nice job, fighters. He's already talking about, hey, it'll be a pull
What's
up and to
next?
the right. Yeah. And so even if you're -3, you're thinking, okay, Air Boss sees us all. He's telling me, nice job. We're clear.
Yep.
Good to
Yep.
go. I don't need, like, in his mind, he's like, Air Boss owns deconfliction. And he didn't quite have it. Probably like you alluded to, man, his vantage point wasn't good enough for him to make that call, because at that point they're coming, even if he could see him, they're coming pretty much straight at him. And
This is what the Air Boss is looking at, essentially.
Yeah, and it's super hard. It's hard to tell, and hey, the B-17 is bigger. Well, yeah, of course it's bigger, So I like, as far as perspective on who's closer,
I can't tell that that's going to be a collision. Like,
I
looking at that, I can't. I mean, this guy could be one. This guy could be.
Well, honestly, I could watch it 100 times. When they collide, it's always a
Following
surprise
is
to me, I mean, it's like you said, it's very hard to tell. But
this looks like he's going to pass aft.
Exactly, 100%. That's what I'm saying. Like, and again, the Air Boss did everything he could to make a safe, enjoyable show. Like, there's nothing that he did. Definitely didn't do anything on purpose. I'm not knocking. We all make mistakes. I mean, I could make a mistake. I could make the same mistakes. And like Ryan said, there's clearly several things. So the old Swiss cheese model lined up.
Yeah, so the NTSB said that it was the Air Bosses and air show event organizers' lack of adequate pre-briefed aircraft separation plan for the performance, relying instead on the real-time deconfliction directives and the see and avoid strategy. I don't disagree with that. I think that is an accurate statement, and I think that hindsight being what it is, sometimes things work so well for so long, we get into this trap of, well, it's going to work. And this is not that cosmic, because I've seen the comments on my own video, because they're like, why would they do such high performance maneuvers? Dude, this is not. This is just flying in a straight line. There's nothing high performance about this typically.
No,
but I don't know.
2 Gs or less. Yeah.
So I buy that. And then the also causal was geometry. Yeah. View obscuration, because they talk about the B-17 can't see him, and the B-17, you can't. It doesn't matter if he saw him. What's he going to do? He's a bomber.
I mean, it could have keyed the mic. Hey,
yeah,
King Cobra.
I guess he could have done a big climb. I mean, that's pretty much all it had. It's not going to bunt, especially at that altitude.
There's no. Yeah, they were on the deck, man.
Attention demands associated with the airshow performance. Yeah, inherent limitations. This lack of FAA guidance, I don't think more government's ever the answer.
No,
personally,
definitely not.
And so they had some recommendations, work together to establish SOP. I'm surprised they didn't have SOPs, standard operating procedures.
Right. And that's it. That's another thing I thought about as well. The first time I watched this was like, I wonder if there's just certain things that apply to each air show, safety wise. Kind of like if we go out on a flight, it's like, you can tell me admin and attack admin standard, and I know what that means because there's a certain, right?
Yeah. And I do, like you and I talked about, get well altitudes.
Oh yeah.
Lost sight game plan. You can't. So I go back to P63-3. You cannot expect a single member of the formation, especially a wingman, no matter how good, to be able to keep track of every other aircraft in the sky. Their job is 2 and 1 in this scenario. So to say he should have had see and avoid, -1 is probably the one that's ultimately, needs to be able to space that. And that's hard to do. I wonder if they had ADS-B tracks on that iPad. That has some lag too. If you start relying on that, that could have some lag and some unintended consequences. But having get well altitudes are mini blocks. I mean, how many times were you in a LFE, a large force exercise with the T-38, and you went to your mini block? You went to your
every time,
right? Anytime I mean,
Yeah.
how many times did an F-22 go screaming through your mini block? I mean, several times.
But I understand the difference in mission. You know, you're trying to put on a good show,
Right.
and you'd never want to put. I say you don't want to sacrifice too much safety for the show. So, all of these airplanes flying at low level, I mean, that's an inherent risk in and of itself, right? Flying close to the ground,
Yeah.
like they are. So I get it. They're trying to mitigate the risk best they can, but I agree with you. There can be more deconfliction built into the general plan. It like, I mean, you know, back to your comment of like, why don't they have points? Well, it kind of sounded to me like the air boss was winging the pattern. Like nobody knew that, like everybody take off and just listen to what I tell you, right? I mean, hey, bring it left. You guys come left, no harder left, no flatten your turn. So, I mean, so if you have a framework in your head of what the course or the flight path is supposed to be to make the pictures look good, you know, then you as a pilot can do some of that pilot shit sometimes and make it happen. And then you as a pilot know where all the, you know, the hot spots are, right? So, and you could be more vigilant. But I mean, again, hindsight's 2020. I mean, if he's been doing it like this his entire career, and to me, I mean, he sounds like he's good at it, right? The way he talks and he's confident about it. But yeah, it did strike me as a little. I don't know if free for all is the word, but I mean, Mover, put yourself in,
Improvised.
right. I mean, put yourself in any of those airplanes. And I mean, I ask myself, like, when they took off, what was the plan in their head? What are we going to do? Like, am I in front of the bombers, behind the bombers? Are we doing lead trail? We side by side, we echelon, like, what are we doing? Because he's telling them different formations and they're all, dude, they're within the terminal area, the field there. I mean, it's pretty varsity, man.
But you say varsity, so that's a good point. I would expect they're all high time pilots, very experienced.
Yeah.
The fact that none of them spoke up speaks to two things. One, either severe complacency because it had always worked, or two, they were used to doing this so much that they knew it was going to work out because it wasn't their first rodeo, right? You and I are looking at this because we've never seen this before. Right. So it is alien to us. But if you've done this and been checked out in it, and you always know, okay, you know, after the Tora, after this happens, and then this happens. Yes, they might not know verbatim maneuver for maneuver. However, they kind of had a general sense of what was next. Maybe not the best way to make it look right. And that's what the air boss is out there doing. So we don't know, we're not getting a lot of backstory.
Right.
But because I said this in my video, all these pilots sat in this brief and nobody had a problem with it.
Right.
Nobody said, hey, maybe we should get well altitudes, mini blocks, Nordo, blind Nordo, deconfliction plans, all that stuff. Now, the second question that brings up is that because it's a culture of that, where if you speak up, you're not doing the show anymore? Or is it because it had worked out? I mean, because, cultures can be like that too, right? Where the culture, it's the good old boys club. And if the first time you say something, it's like, hey, dude, you're not flying our fancy airplanes anymore. That's all we're here to do.
Yeah. I don't know, man. The 1,000-foot line, 500-foot line, that could have been their deconfliction or their pseudo Bino, whatever.
I don't think that would have been enough. I think,
because
a 500-foot,
because they cross.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
I think you needed like a solid, like, hey, a mile on either side. Don't cross this line.
Yeah. I mean, air shows are inherently more dangerous. Lots of airplanes converging on the same, show center, right? So, I don't know, man.
So let me ask you, Gonky, what's the going forward? Because here's what the FAA says. Not only did they want to work together to standardize the terms, which I agree with. Yeah, let's do that. And then of course, they get into, well, let's regulate everything. Now they want recurrent air boss evaluations, which, as
No.
long as it's not the FAA doing it,
Yeah.
provide guidance for FAA inspectors who evaluate the performance of air bosses. What? Like, we just made a jobs program.
Yeah, dude.
We-
This
we-
is all terrible. This is
Has-
terrible.
require FAA inspectors to conduct direct observations. See, this is what happens,
No,
right?
dude.
You can't govern yourself. So
No.
now Uncle Sam's going to come govern you.
Yeah, this whole slide is terrible. It's a terrible idea, FAA. Don't do it.
Well, they
Don't
already
do it.
did.
Yeah.
Well, and then now they said safety management systems to establish safety risk assessment, which I agree with. Participating Airbus directed performances involving multiple aircraft, ensuring safety of revenue passenger rides.
Like
So-
I don't get it. There should be an FAA rep at each air show, and the briefings that I attended, they were there. And if they had a problem with
Yeah.
like the idea that you're gonna have an FAA person like evaluating these kind of air shows, I think is dude, because you can't.
Oh, dude,
You
they're
can't
all going to be
regu-
flying the Star.
Yeah,
That's
but
the air show.
right, you can't. The problem is zero tolerance. So that's great. Well, you can't make enough laws to remove all the risk, is what I'm saying. And sometimes, I'm not going to sit here and say you got to break some of the rules, but sometimes you have to. Certain situations happen where you have to make things happen.
Common sense warbird control on the way.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's see. We've got some chats from the audience. Brian says this incident is so sad. The Texas Raiders is one of the first airplanes I saw up close, and I have pictures with her when I was 3. Same with the Blue Bonnet Bell years ago. Later, both gone now. Prayer for those lost. Yeah, I mean, and that's the other part too. The human
dude.
life aspect.
I know. I have a picture of me with that B-17 when I was 19 years old. It's very
That's too
sad.
bad. Wicked Spider Black says this B-17 second to go down, but different event and time. Pilot gave a test flight 5 minutes, went down earlier than this mishap.
Wow.
Ryan says I've never heard an airboss talk that much, even EAA.
Yeah. Me neither. That was odd to me.
Yeah. All right, and then unrelated to this, since I think we've beaten that horse to death. 48 minutes on that topic.
Dang.
I know.
Well,
Cal says Tomcats.
Tomcats. Cal, thanks, man.
And then Francio. Hello from Italy. Always follow the show.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
we cannot
Thank
pronounce your name. We're not cultured men.
We are not.
All right, Gonky,
thank
how
you.
you been,
Yes, sir.
dude?
Good.
48 minutes into it. We're
40.
we're getting worse at this.
Yeah, no, man, I've been good. I've been doing the dad thing. It's a new year, right?
New year, new Gonky.
New year, same
Gonky.
Gonky with slight tweaks.
Worse Gonky.
Yeah, no, man, just staying busy, trying to. Gosh, we've had this. I think in the U.S. we have this huge cold spell going through right now. I'm freezing down here in Florida. It's crazy, man.
Oh, dude, Luna loves it.
Oh, I bet.
She is having a time of her life. We did a blood drive for the victims. Well, not for the victims. Although we had one guy, he's like, is this going in the victims? I'm like, probably not. But if you want to believe that, sure. But obviously we had the terror attack last week. And have we had a show since then?
No, dude, this is the first show of 2025.
Is it really? Oh,
Yeah.
man, we had our informant starting off the show. I mean, you can't get any deeper than that. The
Intel gets no deeper.
Hey, you don't get any deeper than a dude hiding in the bathroom. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, that's pretty good.
So anyway, yeah. So unfortunately, New Orleans had an attack, and it was, I mean, horrific. And so it was a blood drive. They asked Luna to come out to make people brave or help them feel brave, which she did. She's the best girl.
Awesome.
And we did that today, and it was very cold. I mean, very cold.
Oh yeah,
Like
dude.
30s. which is like
Yeah, with
you'll
wind.
never- with
It's like a
wind.
knife, cuts right through.
No, and then there was the Tesla thing and drones that are anti-gravity.
I listened to some of that on the. I know you don't like other people's podcasts, but the Sean Ryan show. I was listening to the clip that he put out, and I kind of had a hard time following him, man. To be honest, because I just.
Remember how you said my face wasn't going to be able to hide it?
Yeah. Mover and I are on the same page. Yeah, he wants me to say all that anti-gravity nonsense is nonsense. But the thing I like about his show, Sean Ryan's show, is if he does get bamboozled, he does come out and calls it out in the name of transparency, his own words. So I appreciate that. We do the same thing here at the Mover and Gonky show. So if we're wrong, and there are
if we're wrong, then you're all wrong.
If there's anti-gravity drones and
I
aliens,
hope so.
I actually do too, man.
Yeah.
You know what? When I know it's crazy, but when I was listening, what was the term he used? It wasn't anti-gravity. Doug, do you remember?
Gravitic. Gravitic.
I don't think I know what you're talking about.
Whatever the term he used, like insinuated like anti-gravity. All I could think about was that skateboard in Back to the Future, like the hoverboard. I'm like, man, maybe now they have the technology. We don't need gravity. I can get
Jetson
a hoverboard.
cars, dude. That would be Jetson cars. That's what they had.
We were promised flying cars.
Yeah, it's a gravitic drive. Thanks,
There you go. Thanks, man.
Gravitic.
Gravitic. Well,
Yeah,
I write about it in such books as Project Virtus.
Yeah, I don't believe the gravitic whatever. I don't believe I don't believe that technology, but
Gravitronic. What was that thing at the spring fair it was the Gravitron?
was it?
Yeah, the thing that would using the G-forces.
Oh, spin you around. That thing's gnarly, dude.
I think it was called the Gravitron.
I don't know what it's called. I wrote it.
It was like a UFO.
this summer. It's terrible.
Why?
I wrote it with my son because he wanted to ride the darn thing. He's 6.
Just put him in and say, "See you in a little bit."
I was a
Did you
little
get
scared.
sick?
No, but I didn't like it. I was ready to get off that thing. If I could have punched out of it, I would have.
Jeez. Let's see. Brandon says, "Evening, gents. Could you give any guidance on a junior in high school who wants to get into the Air Force Academy and fly CAS?"
Those are good goals. Don't get a felony. Number one.
Don't get a felony. Don't get anybody pregnant.
Yeah.
Don't add to the population. Don't subtract from the population.
Yeah. This
This
is
is
all
like a
joking
safety brief.
aside, valid. 100%.
Those are all real goals
Yeah.
here. Get a good GPA. Probably SAT scores.
Yeah, and get involved in sports. Make sure make sure you're not sitting all day at home in a chair playing video games because physical
Gonky
fitness
will bully you if you do.
Physical fitness is important.
Well, it was. I don't know about now.
It is.
The other thing is get with a admissions liaison officer, an ALO. They'll help you out. It's a reservist like us, except they just do it for points so that they can get a retirement. So
Yes.
that's all they have to do.
And I would say you don't have to go to the Air Force Academy to fly CAS.
Correct.
You can go to other schools. So
Real
don't limit.
college.
Correct. Don't limit yourself. If I'm not saying the academy is bad, but if let's say you don't get an appointment to the academy, all is not lost. Mover and I did not go to any of the academies.
No,
did
and
CAS.
realize it's separated, right? So you're asking two different things.
Right.
The academy is your degree and commissioning
Commissioning.
source.
Right.
You will get a pilot slot, potentially, not guaranteed, out of the Air Force Academy. And then once you get to pilot training, you'll have to track select to fighters, since they don't drop A-10s anymore, do they?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So then you'll have to track select to a fighter that does close air support, which will then rule out the F-22. Essentially, that's the only one that really doesn't anymore. And then you'll have to go to the B course, and you'll have to get to that phase of training. So a lot of steps in between. Focus on small bites at the apple, which for you would be getting your college degree and or commissioning source and or whichever way you want to go.
Staying out of trouble, then make them tell you no. Facebook page is good.
Hell yeah. Skid says, ROTC.
Yep.
Close air sport. Civil Air
Shanghai
Patrol.
says real cast pilots go to real college. Just
Yeah.
Love it.
Thurful Lowell says common sense warbird control. I don't know where that came from. I don't know. Nobody ever said that. Ryan says, Mover, do you have any stories with Alatish or Rougarou while on duty with the sheriff's department? I have no idea what either of those things mean. Is it Spanish?
Maybe that's a good thing. Doug, translate, please.
Yeah, what
does that mean?
Rougarou is a werewolf.
Really?
What's Alatish?
Cajun word for werewolf. I don't know what that means. I'm Googling it now.
Alatish? What is a Rougarou? I hear the clicking. All right, we'll get back to you.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah, I left it in for effect.
Happy New Year, Skid. Sound effects. Mark says, low of 18 degrees tonight in Pittsburgh, watching with the heat on.
Oh,
I got the
man.
heat on right now, and the
Good
Mover
for
and
your
Gonky show hoodie
Yeah.
available wherever merchandise is sold. Max R says, apparently only U.S. and China has this engine, and that is the same China that can't copy Russian AL-31 engine for 10 years. I got a feeling China wouldn't be all into the whole fossil fuel thing and polluting the crap out of their own country if they had this tech.
Yeah.
It wouldn't just be drones. They would have people in them.
Oh, yeah. Why wouldn't you?
But here's what I will say. Because one of the things he said was, it's shooting out of the water, and which that sounds a lot like David Fravor.
It does.
Mhm.
100% came out of the water. That's right.
Came out of the water.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's other accounts too that talk about
Coming out of the water.
water. Yeah.
But the things we saw in New Jersey were aerospace vehicles, aka airliners.
Yeah. The thing that Mover saw was helicopter.
Right over my house is a helicopter. Wicked Spider Black says, subbed on Twitch for a month. Thanks, Wicked Spider Black. Gonky, what are we talking about next?
Okay. Ukrainian F-16 shot down. Yeah, this is one we were going to cover last week. Here, say something while I pull it up.
Ukrainian F-16 was shot down by allegedly Russian forces. I have heard nothing about this except for the one article you're about to pull up.
I looked for an update today, and there's several.
Doug's got something going in the
I got it, dude. Here,
standby area.
Here,
Show is live, therefore expect the unexpected.
All right, dude. Here we go. I just did. Can you see it?
Yeah.
All right. Like Mover said, Ukrainian F-16 fighter jet shot down in Zephyrin. I can't pronounce that. Shot down the Russians' claim. Russian air defenses reportedly down an F-16 flying over southeastern Ukraine, marking a rare victory against Kiev's NATO-supplied fighter jets. This would be the second F-16 that they have lost. However, if it says what
proven to be false, like it's underlined.
Yes. Yeah. Why does this matter? If it's true, this incident would mark only the second confirmed destruction of the American-made jets since Ukraine received their first batch in August, and would be the first to have been down by Russian fire. So the first one that was lost, it's still debatable on what happened. Did he get shot down by a Patriot? Did he get shot down chasing a cruise missile launched by the Russians? That information has not come out yet.
It says the Ukrainians officials suggested we covered that.
We did. We did. So it's still, he said. But yeah, so Ukraine, they've long petitioned for Western allies to supply them with 410 fighters so they can fight the Russians. And it is a high value target as far as the Russians are concerned. So this is awesome here. As reported by TASS on Friday, the director of Russian company forces has promised to shell out 15 million rubles or $145,000 for the destruction of the first American F-16 fighter in the zone of special military operations. So they put,
hey, dude, you know what I've just learned?
What?
I'm a millionaire in rubles.
Have you destroyed one?
No, it's just I looked at the exchange rate. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm a ruble heir.
You've made it. Yeah.
I have at least 1 million rubles to my name.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically the story, man. I think it's unfortunately, the longer this conflict drags on, the more we're going to see that it's either going to be shoot downs or accidents, or friendly fire incidents. It's war. That's what you get. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Mover?
I doubt.
You doubt that it got shot down?
That they shot down. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've heard nothing about them losing an F-16, much less one getting shot down. So it's such a high emphasis item and high visibility aircraft that I feel like we would hear something. It's just doubt. I'm going to doubt it, but it's possible.
Yeah.
But we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll probably never know.
For the Russians, it's very symbolic.
Yeah, I can see
If
why
they
they want to.
Yeah, because it's NATO and, oh, look at the Western equipment that's coming in. And, same thing with the Abrams and stuff. Every time they get some kind of kill on Western equipment, it's a big victory in terms of morale and propaganda and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I can see it both ways, man. I mean, if they actually did shoot down one, it'd look bad for the Ukrainian effort as well. But that's why I say we'll probably never know. But
yeah,
it sucks. I mean, I don't know. That's the Ukrainian F-16 shot down.
Great job. I'm looking for I have it right here.
What is it?
You want to talk about the drone thing?
Drawn a bit of a blank.
Turns out.
Wait, are we back to anti-gravity?
It's a test range video from 2017.
Oh, the flankers.
Yeah, it's not legit.
Do we get bamboozled almost?
We got bamboozled. We did. And you know how I know I'm unbamboozled? Here, I'll share this because
that was some really good. That was some cool footage too.
Well, it's legitimate footage, but check this out. So I'm apparently a community noter now on X, and I don't know how that happened, like who nominated me or how I became a community noter. But check this out. So I see the rate proposed community notes, and I'm probably gonna get fired from them now if I show them this. But see the words, this is test video from 2017.
Oh, dude.
So it turns out it's not legit. Not going to cover it.
Well,
it was cool footage.
That was really cool footage, man.
Yeah. John says on an unrelated topic, we're going to be experiencing 50 to 80 miles per hour winds, 80 mile per hour winds here in SoCal. Oh, wow. Any advice on prep since you both have hurricane experience? I don't do anything for 80 mile an hour winds. That's nothing. It's not even a.
Hopefully, there's no fires.
I'm glad you said it because I was gonna.
Call me back when it's triple digits.
That's just a breeze.
Yeah, nothing. You got to go to work the next day.
That's right.
Code Monkey says my college classmate at Embry Ridiculous Prescott ended up as an A10 driver. I'm not jealous.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I love the A10. Not of Embry Riddle though.
Cameron says those Tic Tacs look a lot like the old EKV, KV, KW, KKV LEAP exo-atmospheric kill vehicles from the 80s.
Is that real?
You want to go on a tangent?
Nope.
Doug, are those real things?
That looks like a fun tangent. What is that? Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Oh. Oh.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
That's from the 80s?
Yeah. That's analog. Well, it's not fully analog.
Hey, let's go look at this 4 days in the world's tiniest airplane video.
Dude, that's from the 80s? Oh, for sure. Dude, for sure we've got UFOs now. That's 40 years ago, man.
We are the UFOs.
We're Mover, we've bamboozled ourselves, dude.
Well, I want to go see what the 4 days in the tiniest airplane was about.
That's I can't think of her name right now. She's an engineer. You make
said
her
it.
on YouTube. And she flies.
This is
Elias Kaiser Okay, I'm never gonna get that right. One day he's gonna have to tell us, like with a voice thing. Watching live in the gym right now, except I don't have melted red Crayola Porsche as a gym buddy. So I'm not gonna say anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You know the backstory behind that.
No, but I wish I had one of those red Porsches.
Guards red, sir.
Sorry. My bad. My bad.
Max R says the weird thing is that no other Russian blogger is reporting that. Also saw an article today that they are shortening the training for Segway.
Segway. Nice job, man. Thank you. That's right. Ukraine reducing F-16 pilot training time. Doug, do you have it up here? I got it up, dude. Share it. Here we go. Here.
Our professional operation
Oh,
continues.
dude. 100%. Whoops.
Now we're fighting each other
Go
to
ahead,
go to
Doug,
the
you pushed
stage.
the button. You pushed the button.
I pushed no buttons. That was all mover.
Oh, was it?
That was mover.
All right. Ukraine chops 3 months from F-16 training. So critics fear shortened training period may not prepare pilots properly. Go figure. Ukraine's government has announced it's cutting its training time for new F-16 pilots to fill cockpits faster. The Air Force has received dozens of Vipers in the last few months as the country is anxious to put them in action. But the pilot pipeline isn't keeping up. And that sounds like a recurring story all over the world.
Capacity.
Yeah, dude, not enough.
PFT.
pilots. That's right. So Ukrainian combat aviation must eventually gain air superiority as this paves the way for success for our actions on the front line. Aerial warfare experts are concerned the scheme may backfire. Let's see here. All right, here's some critics. There's been widespread criticism of the plan, which critics argue that F-16's weapon systems are so complex compared to Soviet era systems that have been used by the Ukrainian pilots. So the Viper speaks English, and the lack of fluency by pilots hampers communication is vital to get the most out of the aircraft. It's feared that the measure, which is being built as temporary to address the short-term problem, will affect the whole Ukrainian Air Force and their overall combat effectiveness. So, mover, we have talked about reduction in training, and it didn't really. If they cut out all the sim time, I'm on board with that. But if they're like cutting out
Nerds.
right, if they're cutting out flight times, seat time in the airplane, syllabus events, I think that's real bad, and it's not going to bode well for their performance in combat. We've talked about it. You think so, man? What's your take?
It depends. I'm with you 100%. What are they cutting out? 3 months. So here's the problem with Air Force training is that it's incredibly inefficient.
Oh,
and I mean, just like think of like the C-130, right? 6 months in Little Rock. No, you don't need that much time. There's nothing you can teach me in 6 months. I can go learn a 787 in a month. And even that has too much slop in it. Probably like a 2-week program. So if they are making it more efficient and, EPs, because they're experienced pilots going to this, right? These aren't like UPT students.
No, based on the fact that, they're used to Soviet era equipment.
Right. So, but are they mitigating it with that article is kind of sketch on the details.
Yeah, there's not a ton of details in it.
Contrary to what you just said, if they're mitigating it with sim time, VR, DCS, Falcon BMS, whatever, right? The equivalent to your block. Because if I show up to training and I'm already familiar with where the switches are and what all the systems do, and I'm doing all the academics at home, and I show up as a full up round, ready to learn, and I don't need a lot of instruction, yeah, it's a 3-month program or less. Because really, assuming you've got good weather, an experienced fighter pilot can probably go through BFM in 2 weeks.
Okay, so somebody like me, let's say I went to the F-16B course in the US. How long, like start to finish, how long would that be?
In real life?
Yeah.
4 months.
Okay.
That would be a TX1, about 4 months.
That's what I would be a TX, because I'm a fighter pilot from another platform.
You don't have any Viper time. TX1 is like, hey, you're coming from a different airframe. TX2 is you're going back to the Viper after X number of time out. TX3 is a shorter amount of time. Then you have the senior officer courses, which is like what I went through in the Hornet, where it's only 6 weeks. Dude, even the Hornet, like I did the Hornet in 6 weeks, but that was a
That's Navy
cat
style.
other.
Yeah, that's Navy.
And that was slow, and I learned nothing about how to turn the radar on.
right.
Like you could
Well-
teach somebody just how to turn the thing on and go, and not how to employ.
Right. Do you bring up a good point? Flying qualified is different than employing qualified.
Right. And then the question then becomes, is it the blind leading the blind? Right. So what is after? Because if you go through Air Force training, you have a baseline. You have Joint Specialized Undergraduate Pilot Training. You have IFF, Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals. You have the basic course. Once you finish the basic course, then you go to your squadron. Then you go to the mission qualification training. When you finish MQT, now you're a wingman. Now, it's kind of on the job learning. Then you do your flight lead upgrade, and it basically is the MQT, except now you're leading. And then you do an IP upgrade. There's a lot of reinforcement along the way. If you went through a truncated B course that's only 3 months long, for example, or 2 months long, and you only got one ride in every phase, and then that person is going to have to turn around and teach because they're the experienced cadre, it's going to be a disaster. You don't have any baseline. You're trying to, because law of primacy always kicks in. When I flew the Hornet, it was the same thing. What did I want to do? In the absence of someone teaching me something, which happened at Strike Patron 204, I would do Viper tactics. And a lot of times it worked great because the Hornet does Viper stuff better than the Viper does in some cases.
Yeah.
But
So
a lot of
funny.
times it didn't work out so well.
Yeah, I did the same thing in the T-38. It's like, well, I
Yeah.
was never taught this, so I'm going to do what I've always done.
Your negative G guns
It
defense.
works, dude. It works. Get skinny and go. Dude,
It's a training rule violation, but it works.
No,
All
dude,
the
it
Air
works.
Force guys are like, what?
What?
For
Dude, all the
legal
time.
reasons, this is a joke.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Oh, well, and I wonder, since you said, hey, 4 months, right? For somebody like myself.
Well, I think they were doing 6. If I remember when we first talked about this, it was a 6-month program because it was like extra because they had to learn English and they had
That's
to.
what I'm getting at. So maybe since they brought up the language stuff at the end, I'm like, maybe they're cutting out some of the non-flying stuff. But 6 months, I mean, that's if going for like if I had to learn another language and then another airplane, like a fighter jet, that would be a tall order, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, I think of I hate to talk DCS, but I think of like getting in the MiG-29 or the Su-27 in DCS, and it's in Cyrillic and metric, and you're just like, I don't have any idea what any of that means.
Right, dude,
like once it gets into a mode, like you see the funnel, you're like, oh, that's probably the gun. Oh, I hit the trigger. The gun bullets came out. That's the gun. I see this little reticle. I put it on. I hit this button and it uncaged. Okay, that's probably about right. There's a little bit of transfer just because you're a fighter pilot, but
of course,
I think back. Well, 2 things. One, I think to the first time I flew the A10C sim because
like the real one.
The A10C, I went to Barksdale, interviewed, got the job, was flying the A10C. He's like, hey, why don't you try this? And none of the buttons are right. It's got the F-16 stick, center stick,
That's
right?
because your law of primacy kicked in.
Well, it's wrong. No, they just did it wrong. I'm telling you, they did it wrong. So you got the TMUS, the CMUS, and the DMUS on the stick. Do I have one? No, I don't have it's on my nerd chair. DOF Reality H6. So you got these buttons, right? And in the F-16, TMUS does all your targeting because that's the target management system. I don't know, whatever. It's been a long time. And so if you want to designate something, you TMUS forward. If you want to change displays, DMUS because that's display. Well, in the A10, DMUS does your targeting. Like what? Why? Like, you couldn't make them the same. The F-16 came first. So I'm sitting there, just all the different switches. Now, move to the Hornet. best story I love telling, because not only is the Hornet mech different than the Viper, and that one was a little bit easier because the the F-18 stick and the F-16 stick don't look anything alike. So, rock aft, all that stuff, that's kind of easy to learn because it's so different. But then you get in the air, right? Bucky takes me flying, and what's he do? Porpoises the nose. Where do I go? 1 mile line abreast. And he's on the radio going, dude, where are you going? Gonky, what is pumping the nose?
Bring it in. Bring it on in.
180 degrees out.
Well, I know that as an Air Force guy now.
Yes. So there is the law of primacy, because you always remember your first love, your first jet. But then you have the cultural difference, right?
Yeah.
Navy to Air Force to Navy. But take that a step further, and it's not just we don't speak the same language as a metaphor. We literally do not speak the same language. Like chaff flare means nothing to these people,
Right. Yeah.
Engine fire left and Betty on the F-18 would just be nothing. It'd mean nothing.
But that's where I'm going is maybe cutting, maybe cutting is not the right answer. I mean, I get it. They're in a war and they're trying to fill seats. They're doing what they can, but I mean, there's at the end of the day, man, it takes a certain amount of time to train a human being to do something, regardless of your experience.
Yeah. I don't know. What I hope, and I will always catch hate. I don't understand why I catch hate, but we always catch hate for this. I hope that the war ends, and this becomes overcome by events. Like, I hope we find peace and we are able to train them as
proper
they should be trained.
Yes,
right.
Exactly, dude.
That's what I hope. I hope for peace.
Same, man. Exactly. I want to see them doing air shows and flying the airplane like it needs to be flown.
With altitude geographical deconfliction.
All of that.
They can do it at 100 feet, but as long as the other guy's at 150 and he knows that, it's fine with me.
They can keep buying them, keep buying Vipers, buy new ones,
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
All right. Let's see. Josh says, can military jets fly in a hurricane? Yes.
Yes.
It's one of the 2 times I've been struck by lightning. Flying in a tropical storm.
C-130s do it all the time.
Yeah. Plexi! Wait, what's wrong with Embry Ridiculous? I went to Ridiculous.
Wait a minute. You went to Embry Riddle?
Look at his picture. Of course he did.
No, you.
Me?
Did you say you went to Embry Riddle?
I'm reading, Gonky.
Oh,
this is the words on the screen.
I thought you were done reading and then you were making a personal statement.
Look, see the words? I'm reading them.
Yeah, but the way you said it, it was very after the fact.
Nah, dude, I read whatever's on the teleprompter, just like Ron Burgundy.
Apparently, dude. Yeah, nothing's wrong with Riddle, Plexi.
I just like to make fun of everybody. If I don't get everybody pissed off at me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When I have a funeral, everybody's going to show up because they're mad. Not because they want to pay their respects, but they're all like, just one more
piece of their mind
poking me in the chest. Like, mover, you pissed me off.
I'm going to get the last word in here.
Yeah. It'll be open casket because they want to poke me in the chest. Crazy Pete says typical C-130 training sortie is about 6 months.
Oh, dude, that's funny. Just one sortie. Just one
or feels like it, he says.
Yeah.
Oh, it's perfect.
I think our boss would agree. It's funny.
Ron says Rocket Ripley and Liza Liu go to pilot training next book. Write that down. Write that down.
Oh, man, I don't know. That's funny.
Andreas says, hello from the Kingdom of Sweden. My favorite aircraft has always been the F-22 in terms of dogfighting capability, certainly within visual range. It seems so superior. Agree? Great show, guys. Yes.
Yes. It's really good. Really good.
Yes.
Yeah. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can see a Hornet fighting one. It doesn't end up well for the Hornet.
Dude, you want to get 1 million views? I read an article today about somebody, I don't know if it was satire or if it was just breaking news. It came out today saying that Russia had given up on the Su-57 and ended all production.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Let me pull that up. Because I was looking up, I was like, we need to talk about the Su-57.
I
'Cause,
looked today. There was no new news as of noonish Central Time.
Let's see.
Stuff we've already covered, man.
Murphy's Law, felon fighters suspended. Russia has abandoned its 29-ton twin-engine Su-57 project after only 32 prototype and pre-production aircraft were built.
Who wrote it?
It's called the strategy page. The news is history. And I can't figure out if this is like a, satire.
Yeah, dude. I say no way. No way.
Yeah, that's why I was like, maybe we should. For sure, we'd have some mad people.
Oh, 100%. 100%. But that would be like breaking news in the military aviation world.
Oh, dude, we'd be getting phone calls from military intel.
Yeah, that would, yes, exactly. The deepest intel again.
Well, you know what? You know why it's deep intel? You heard it here first. They have put the faster than light technology in their Su-75 and decided they didn't need it.
Oh, they're just going to leapfrog one generation. I got you.
Right.
Maybe. Yeah, dude. Maybe they put some of those anti-gravitron things in it and it's now the Su-69 or whatever. I don't know.
This is what happens when two idiots have a podcast.
This
It's so great because the comments take us seriously, and then they're like, "This is the best America has to offer." And it's like, "Trust me, buddy, we know."
No, this is why
America no longer offers us.
This is how actual fighter pilots discuss serious issues in a ready room or bar type environment.
Yeah,
I'd say it's fake, man. There's no chance. Maybe slight chance.
You'd be getting calls from people preemptively mad that they can't get mad until you have a video.
Yeah.
Zippers Forever says, check out Koa at Wolf Rescue. Chill, Malinois 3-year-old. Dude, I can't do another dog. I want to, but I can't. Unless you're just advertising for the world, in which case, check out Koa at Wolf Rescue. Chill, Malinois 3 years old.
Yeah, I can't do another dog either, dude. Not right now. Too soon.
You need. I'm stuck in a loop, dude. I can't get rid of this. All right. You said you wanted to talk about Saudi Arabia. Considers the Khan from the large country of Turkey.
Yeah, man. Well, I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and
you've pissed off the whole country of Turkey.
Growing up as a kid, I lived 10 miles from the base watching all the fighter jets take off. So I saw this pop up in my Google feed is why Saudi Arabia is considering buying Turkey's upcoming stealth jets. So Saudi Arabia wants the F-35, but they've put in, it's not like a firm order, but they've talked about maybe chipping in with the development of it and buying 100 of them. So they're looking for something 5th gen. So Saudi Arabia now, they use, they're pretty heavy in the F-15. They had a lot of C models, Strike Eagles. They've got the latest versions of the Eagle, and then they've got Typhoon. I think they're still flying Tornadoes as well, but they want the next generation like everybody else does, and they're getting some pushback from the U.S. due to the whole U.S., Israel, Arab nation kind of thing, all that politics. So they're looking elsewhere. The benefit here for Turkey obviously is Saudi Arabia's got a lot of money and they have a lot of nice equipment in their military, so they would be able to really help with the funding and the development of the Khan. Then of course Saudi Arabia then would get, they're saying maybe if they can't get the engines, they're planning on using they're using GE engines in it right now. So if they can't produce their own advanced engine for the airplane, they're saying maybe it'll be like Gen 4.75, right? Because it's going to have the normal cans in the back. But it's, I think Saudi Arabia is testing the waters, or maybe trying to, I don't know, get some leverage on getting the F-35. That's just my own opinion. But what do you think, Mover?
Yeah, it's valid. A lot of negotiating in public is tipping your hand to stuff. Now, What's the relationship between Turkey and Saudi Arabia right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't look into that. Although I think the relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia has been better in the past.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That obviously it's a new aircraft,
Yes.
relatively unproven. You know, we don't know from a tactical perspective. I don't really know what the timeline is.
Yeah, 2030 is kind
Right.
of I was
So
reading.
they can go and get Fat Amy now
Right.
or get on the list.
Yep.
But, you know, it's if that's their goal, as you pointed out, it's a great strategy, right? We're going to buy the con. Oh, hey, Lockheed Martin. How about this F-35? Now, the F-35, you might be waiting till 2030 just based on their production woes that they've had and how far, you know, how they've needed to catch up with their production for the United States Air Force and foreign partners and stuff. And then they'd have to talk about which version they get, all that stuff.
Yeah, and there was a couple articles that mentioned the Saudi looking at the con, but one of them also mentioned that Saudi Arabia is also kind of looking at some of the Chinese stuff because the Chinese and the Saudis have become a little more friendly with one another.
Yeah.
But so my dad was a mechanic over there in aviation, and I worked for Boeing previously, and they obviously buy a lot of Boeing products, F-15s. And I didn't read anything, but I don't understand how the getting the expertise into Saudi Arabia to maintain and supply the con. I mean, I did read a little bit about how Saudi Arabia is trying to improve its own aerospace, industry. So maybe they're thinking about co-developing the con to get some of that expertise so they don't have to rely so much on other countries coming in and helping them maintain these very complex weapon systems so they can be more self-sufficient, which I understand. And I would support that.
Bankrolling. I mean, if you've got the big checkbook,
yeah,
maybe
exactly.
maybe it's not 2030s, you know, maybe they come on board and they get something a lot sooner. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen the con fly.
It
So we know
flies.
that it's at least at that point in development.
Yes.
So we'll have to find out. And I think even as you pointed out, 4.75 is still good.
Oh yeah.
You're splitting hairs. Like,
yeah,
if they can't get an engine that, you know, is stealth compatible really and hides its IR signature and hides the rear RCS,
it'll still be very capable.
It'll still be a, you know, technology platform, because a lot of what 5th gen I think is more than just stealth. It's all the sensor fusion and management and all that stuff, all these sensors that they have, you know, where they can see into the future and whatnot. That's what you want. You know, you want to be able to see the anti-gravity drones as they zip by.
That's right. I see you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything from the audience? Wicked Spider Black says it's 3 dung here, 2 don't forget the voice. Oh, Doug's here.
That's right. Yeah, Doug's chimed
Doug.
in.
Yeah,
How
I've
you
been
doing,
talking.
man.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Wicked Spider. Didn't you hear the keyboard? That's Doug too.
No, I think he's saying Doug is the 3rd idiot because we said it's just 2 idiots on the show. I think he's
I gotcha.
Yeah. All right, Gonky.
Yes, sir.
So the Jeju update, I don't know that we really have much of an update. You said you read an article about it in the Wall Street Journal. Is that what you have, Doug?
That's what I have, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not a lot, but
It is Jeju, by the way. We were corrected heavily.
No, what I have is from France 24. Yeah, that's it. Sorry.
Yeah, so there's been, I don't know, I've watched some stuff come out since we talked about it last week, but you know, the update is basically where they're at is here in the next day or so. The CVR transcript, they almost have that thing completed. The black boxes, I guess, were damaged, and they are. I think during the show last week, I said they're going to Brazil. They're going to send them to the States to get the data out of them, so we can kind of see what's going on with the airplane. But what I wanted to ask you, Mover, is, if you read through the article, it doesn't really say anything too new, but I've read about a dozen of these, and in almost every single one of them, it talks about two things that we really didn't talk about last week. Which, number one, why after they hit the bird on final, why'd they go around? Is that a 7-3 thing?
No, honestly, I think the timeline is confused because, and this is just Mover's opinion, they were going around when they hit so the video that we watched where they have a compressor stall on the number 2 engine.
Is that before or after?
That was
the runway?
during the go around. So they were already going around at that point because they were cleaned up.
Have you read that?
If you look at the ADSB data, they were on glide path down to 800 feet or whatever it is, 400 feet. Your gear's been down a long time. And one of the observers said that he saw the landing gear down. So to me, the timeline of where that video happens, especially since it's only like a mile or a mile and a half from the runway, is that was because you can see the noses up too. That was already on the go around. So they were going around, and whatever happened caused that compressor stall. The flames coming out the back. That's typical of a compressor stall. When I hit a bird in the T-38, the RSU, the Runway Supervisory Unit in the Air Force, came back and said, I don't know if you had a blowout. There was a big orange flame that came out the back because the bird went in and it pop, 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 and it's just shooting flames out the back. So I think at that point they were already going around, and I think the standard climb out was a left-hand turn.
All right. So they went around for an unrelated reason.
We don't know because they could have hit birds before that and been going around. Now, that is a great question, Gonky. In my mind, you're already in a position to land. You just land.
Right.
But I don't know. That's what the CVR is going to be good for.
Right.
Is
Exactly.
what the two questions I have. One, why did they do a go around?
Yeah.
It could be, because it's a different culture, right? South Korean airline, company policy, they could have gotten the bird warning and said, no, we're going to go around, and they may have been deciding to do something else because they got the bird warning because they get the bird alert, right, from the tower guy. It could have been related. They could have just been triggered to go around because in some training departments, go around is, go arounds are free. Let's do a go around. They might not have been thinking like that, especially coming off of a red eye.
Mm-hmm.
The second question I then have is from the time they went around to Mayday to crashing is about like 3 to 5 minutes. It's a very short time.
Rushed. Right.
So what drove that sense of urgency?
Right. Yeah. No, and that'll come out. So that was the first thing I noticed reading all these articles. And the second thing, like, there's a lot of blame on the wall. And
yeah, I don't buy that.
So the wall, and so I was doing some reading. The reason why, and last week I was like, that is weird. They would build like a concrete wall for the localizer antenna. But the reason why they did that is because the ground slope after the end of the runway, it drops down, and in order for the localizer to work, they had to build like a hill, and that was just the best way to build it. They put a wall out there, and one of the guys I was watching a thing. He said, is it bad to have a wall at the end of a runway? Yeah, but he said it was 300 yards from meters. 300 meters from the end of the overrun, not the end of the runway, but the end of the overrun.
Yeah.
So, and then I don't know. Here, let me share my screen. I thought this was kind of. Did you ever? I don't know.
No, I avoided it as much as possible.
You never went to Korea?
No, I actually had the opportunity, but I was on orders and had to stay at home.
All right, dude. Can you see this?
Yeah.
All right.
It's
So
fancy.
here's the airport, right? So I was like, man, so here's the end of the field. There's the wall, right?
The Stock Dual Avion. What does that mean?
Dude, I don't know. Doug, sounds like is that? I don't know. Here.
Is it really that far away?
Yeah, but check this out, man. So I was like, look at this. You can take the little guy here and you walk, boom, drop him right here. Check this out. Turn him around. So here's the approach lights coming the other way. And then now watch. If you take a gander, so there's the wall right there, right?
Yeah.
You see through the gate, that's the wall they hit. But then if that wasn't, I mean, look, dude, there's a there's a brick wall all the way around the airport. See what I'm saying? So like that's why I asked if you've ever flown in. I mean, this looks kind of like a prison, dude. If you've ever flown in South Korea, maybe security measures are different, but you know, the media seems to be blaming this wall for the cause of.
Well, this goes back to what we just talked about, what Ryan said that I said, right? They always want a villain.
Yeah.
And in a
the wall.
culture where you want to believe that everybody's Sully, and I'm not saying he's not, but
Right.
the cause
Yeah.
of the death was departing the prepared surface
Correct.
at high speed. It
Yeah.
did not matter. Maybe more people would have survived. Maybe
Right.
it might have been a little bit more survivable, but you're
Right.
still going off-roading at
Yeah.
triple digit speed in an aircraft with the gear up and nothing,
Correct.
no drag.
No way to slow down. Yeah. And here's I know that for the listeners, you can't see it, but I mean, it has a pretty substantial overrun, and then that localizer wall is pretty far. And then even if that wasn't there, like I showed previously, man, there is a concrete wall with barbed wire all the way around the airport. And if I was a betting man, I guarantee you that's not the only airport in South Korea that is built like that.
No, and that's the thing. It's like, your car leaves the prepared surface and, well, you died because you hit a bridge abutment. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not like we're talking about, Dale Earnhardt at Daytona where he gets T-boned into the wall and died because he hit the wall. One is a controlled environment where you have to have a little bit of leeway, safer barriers and stuff.
Right.
Airports are not designed for aircraft to
No.
go off-roading. Like
No.
there's no consideration. If you go to like Midway or some LaGuardia, LaGuardia, you end up in the water. I mean, DC, the freezing water, all those people died because the aircraft went,
Yep.
in the ice conditions into the Potomac. This is not should not be the focus. It is not causal. It is contributory to the death, but it is not causal.
That's what I'm getting at. Like a lot of the stuff I was reading and watching, it's like, all the wall is, it was the thing that caused the airplane to explode. But I'd be interested to see the CBR and the black boxes, see what we can get there. But yeah, still many questions. But like I said,
there was also a report about the QRH being found.
I saw that. I didn't put any weight in that, man. Right? What they said it was.
They found some pages about gear down, which makes no sense because the gear was up.
Yeah.
And in 3 minutes, I would be surprised if anybody even pulled out a QRH.
No.
Like in the time that they had, I don't think they got to that point. The reason they found QRH pages is because the thing exploded when it hit the wall.
Yep, 100%.
It hit the berm. So I don't know.
That's it. That's the quick update.
Yeah.
Still very sad. Very sad.
Robert says, hold on. Let's do this one first while we're still on topic. Michael says, would it have been better for that Korean airliner to land in the grass instead off the runway? But their landing gear wasn't down. No. Interesting story. When I had my Glacier, in fact, the day I took Doug for a flight in the Glacier, I returned to AMA, and the up switches were kind of weird. It was There's these little plastic up switches, down switches that would tell you if the landing gear was green or red. And I was having problems with them. And I lowered the gear. And when the aircraft, when it had an unsafe indication, right, it would give you red and green, which is a terrible design. So I dropped the gear. I get red and green. I didn't even see the red. Like my mind just looked at the green. And luckily, somebody in the clubhouse, because this is a private strip, says, gear up, go around, gear up. So I go around. I'm a college kid. Don't know what the hell I'm doing. Low time private pilot. And it's my airplane. Like I'm thinking of, I don't want to lose this airplane. I don't care if I die. I just don't want to lose my airplane. And so I'm talking to New Orleans Tower and I'm like, hey, do you have some grass that I maybe could, gear up and land? And I will never forget the chorus of airline pilots saying, take the runway, kid. Take the runway. Don't land in the grass. Take the runway. No idea why at the time. I didn't know. But that was what they were saying. Luckily, I flew by the tower a couple times. One gear was down. The gravity assist wasn't working because it was hydraulically held up. Relieve the pressure. Had a Cessna look me over. It looked like it was okay. Go to lakefront, and best landing I've ever done. Got the flaps up as it's rolling out because I start to feel it start to do this. And killed the engine, so no prop strike, but I went off into the grass. Flew it back the next day. But the lesson learned was landing in the grass gives you the least amount of certainty and the highest probability of things going way wrong. Because all it takes, because dirt is not made for gear up situations. Because you can, one of the inlets can dig in, you start cartwheeling, the wing turn, you can dig into dirt. It's very hard to dig into asphalt or whatever the surface is, concrete, whatever. And so if they had gone into the grass, the odds are they would have been just a fireball earlier. But people have also brought up water landings, and I will counter with, I don't know of any airline pilot that immediately thinks I need to do a water landing. Like, I think all things being equal, we're going to take the runway 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, 100%. Well said.
There's just no training that says that. The only time you ditch is when you don't have any other options.
Yeah. Plus, man, you take the runway. I mean, that's where all your emergency stuff's going to be anyways.
Exactly.
You land in the grass. I mean, now they got to drive through the mud and the grass. Maybe they get stuck. I mean, no bueno.
Or you hit another concrete berm that you didn't know was there. At least they had 9,000 feet of prepared surface that they could try. And realistically, if they could have landed brick one and dissipated some of that energy, they may not have made it all 9,000 feet. They may have made it into the overrun and stopped well short of that berm. I mean, we're talking about an aircraft that was at high speed in the video when it passed. It wasn't slowing down. And that's going to bring up another question. Were they trying, what was the power setting? How fast did they land? What were they trying to do? Were they, the nose is up? Were they trying to go around? Did they figure out, hey, this isn't going to work and try to go around at the last minute? We don't know. But to blame the inanimate object at the end of the runway negates everything in that error chain that got onto that point.
Swiss cheese, man. There's a lot of holes.
I don't know why it's popular to hate the Swiss cheese model now, and I don't know why. I've been seeing that comment. Yeah, I've been seeing that comment. They're like, well, look, there's another guy that says Swiss cheese. I wish you guys would stop. And it's like,
well, because it's real. If you've ever been in any kind of
I've lost track of the things people get triggered by.
Yeah, whatever.
Gonzo said, would a side slip have slowed them down?
Well, not on the runway.
Not on the runway. What would have slowed them down is throwing the gear out.
Yeah.
Why they didn't remains to be seen. I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know if he was just worried about making the field because he was dual engine failure and
some reason the gear wouldn't come down.
was the, were the pitot tubes damaged and he didn't have airspeed indications? And it's impossible to know. Anyway, Robert says, Mover, if there was one upgrade you could do to the F-16 to make it better, what would you do to it? Gonky, same question. Radar. I want to be able to see into the future.
That's funny. That's funny because for the EF, it has an amazing radar. If I could do the E says it sees into the future, literally.
Yeah. I want to see everyone, what they had for lunch. I want to be able to give them their colonoscopy from 50, 60, 70 miles away.
Yeah,
like I want to know everything.
You just described the APG-79. It's amazing.
Well,
no talent. Can you point it in that direction? Yes. Yeah. I'm old school, man. I need more power. The Rhino has more power than the Legacy Hornet, but it's heavier and more draggy. I think the EF needs at least 30% more thrust, but what do I know?
I've only flown mech scanned radars, so I'm used to never seeing anything.
Yeah, but you know what? That's a working man's radar, man.
I want one day to just be able to go, you die, then you die, then you die.
That's how it is. You just line them up.
No idea. No, I'm like, oh God, I hope I see him. I hope I see him. Oh, I'm spiked. Oh,
you know what though, man? Like, but that's why I always used to wonder, like when we were flying Red Air and the old mech radars and F-18As, when we were going up against new Super Hornets, I'm like, why aren't we dead right now? Because I remember being those guys, and I'd like to think
cat playing with the toy. It's just he's just toying with us.
Yeah, but then sometimes the cat would get dead. But sometimes the cat would get dead. That's the only problem.
Well, it's probably because the Wizzo wouldn't shut up.
Probably.
They were arguing about who was targeting who, and if they'd have just had one of them in the plane, they'd have been fine.
They were busy adjusting GoPros, dude. for the
disconnected from their phone. They're like, oh, Bluetooth disconnected. Hey, how far out are we? It doesn't matter. The Bluetooth disconnected. We're not recording any of this.
That's awesome.
The cruise video is gonna suck.
That's right. Yeah.
John says, I don't know if I want Mover giving me my colonoscopy. Well, that's your loss. Hey, speaking of who you want flying, the Taliban crashed a Black Hawk. Doug, do you have that?
Oh boy, there she is.
It's delightful.
It's delightful.
Need more pedal.
You think the tail rotors failed?
Well, if you don't, I don't know, dude, because the SAS on those things usually, unless they just don't turn it on.
Oh, dude, that's not good.
That's gonna hurt. What's gonna happen?
Well,
it's a nice rifle.
Well, you know.
I mean, dude, if you just yanked up on the collective and just, inshallah, that could be the answer.
I mean, to me, it looks just like when I don't know much about helicopters. When the tail rotor fails, like, you see those helicopters.
Yeah, well, the loss of tail rotor will look like that when you don't use the tail rotor also.
Okay.
Like you actually have to put in left pedal.
Yeah.
Keep it from doing that. So, I don't know.
They're down one Black Hawk.
Well, how many did they have?
How many did we leave? We left them in Air Force, didn't we?
I feel like I could have used that Black Hawk. Oh, we hear clicking.
Sorry.
No, Doug, I love it. It makes us sound very official.
Doug's like, calculating.
He's finding out how many Black Hawks did we leave back.
Yeah.
No, I was just making snarky remarks in the comments.
Oh, he wasn't even worried about
it.
Dude. Hey, real quick before we get to the mental health minutes on the topic of aircraft crashing. This one's actually in India.
Uh-oh. Have we a new one?
This is from November. This is a MiG-29.
Oh, that's right. The spin? Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, that is straight up flat spin.
Wow.
But they got out.
Good. They got out. Good.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, see how fast that thing was spinning?
I mean, dude, that thing was... If
Have
they
you
were
ever-
still in it, they were straight up just like Ice or Goose and Maverick
Yeah.
pinned to the side of the canopy.
Oh man. Wow. Have you ever been in a spin mover?
Yeah,
Yeah.
intentionally. I went to Edwards and they did that on purpose.
And
We
the
did
F-16?
inverted flat spins. Yeah,
Really? Did it pull your eyeball? Could you feel it tugging your eyeballs?
I was sick for
Yeah.
like
It's
24
weird.
hours after. I felt so bad.
Yeah, it's not good.
I went to this course. I forgot what it's called. So we had a guy that departed controlled flight doing a tuck under jink with a D model because those things had AFCG. Below 10,000 feet, had to jump out, lost the jet. So the new thing was, in order to be qualified to be able to do full up between 10 and 5,000 feet, we had to go to this course at Edwards. And he would fly with a test pilot. He'd go up. They would mess with the fuels to get AFCG. And we'd go up to like 40 something thousand feet. And we'd spin it one way, then climb back up, then inverted, because you had to rocket out, right? We had our spin procedures where we had to MPO switch, override and hold, 6 cycle and phase, and rocket out of the inverted flat spin. And dude, it's just negative G, 0G, negative G, positive G.
Yeah.
And then, but the cool part was you landed out of an SFO. So in the Air Force, you know how in the T-38, we mostly just did low approaches?
Yeah.
Save the tires, right? So in the F-16, you don't typically land out of a simulated flame out pattern. But at Edwards, you could, because it was that dry lake bed, the runways. So we would do a low kidding SFO simulated flame out all the way from, 15,000 feet and land out of it and then taxi back. It was pretty cool. And then that's the first time I've ever experienced a sonic boom from the ground. A cool place to be, man. Edwards was cool.
I bet.
And AF1 and 2, the first Fat Amy showed up when I was there.
Really?
That trip, yeah. We watched him taxi in.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Was it all
That's cool.
inspiring? Were you like, man, I want to fly that? You're like, maybe they'll try something new.
Yeah, it's like, this is test. They'll fix it.
Yeah, they'll fix it. They'll make it look better in test. That's for
It's
sure.
all the test equipment that makes it look like that. They'll fix it.
That's funny.
Let's see. Richard says, Richard AT, why don't we have barricades like aircraft carriers for emergencies at airports? Because you could not get a back 15 big enough to take out a 737 at 160 knots.
Yeah. No way.
It would just go right through it.
Yeah. They have I forget the technical term, but in the overrun area, they have material that they can put down.
EMAS.
That's what it is. EMAS, yeah. So, but I'm pretty sure that works best if you have your gear down, right, mover?
Correct. Yes. It's
So-
the engineered material arresting system. Technology uses crushable materials to stop overrunning aircraft.
Yeah.
It also probably would not have helped even if they had their gear down, because they were going through the overrun at super high speed.
Super high speed, yeah, exactly. So the scenario that scenario is, a mover, would you say it's not supposed to happen?
It's not a survivable.
Right.
Like-
you can't, unless they just made a purpose, unless he's landing at Edwards. If you landed at Edwards and you had enough runway, sure. But
If they had nothing but plowed, fresh, like field, and the pilot kept it perfectly in ground effect until it slowed down and kept the nose up, maybe.
yeah.
But any divots, any slopes, like, because all it takes is them going through a ditch, and now they're doing, and now who knows? We're
Yeah, and from the pilot's seat, you don't know if the grass off the side of the runway is smooth. You don't have that.
Yeah.
You don't have that level of vision. I don't.
dude, it's like, helicopters. I land in fields and stuff, and you're like, oh, that looks like, and then you touch down on the skid, and you're like, holy crap, okay, don't dynamic roll over this thing.
Right. Yeah. The only place where you're like guaranteed it's smooth is the prepared surface.
At most airports.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
New Orleans with the ski jump. Remember
New
the ski
Orleans,
jump at Runway
yes.
4 at New Orleans?
Yes. Yeah. It
And
extends the
just
strut.
just as many potholes as the city does.
Yeah.
Zippers Forever says, when you learn on DCS and didn't know there's no user curve on the flight controls in real life. Yeah. Andrea says, haven't both of you flown airliners? What passenger jet do you guys believe is the safest, not only in terms of record? The 787 has never had a hull loss, apparently. I think they're all safe.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
safe.
I don't, a lot of safety record depends on operator. And that includes pilot, maintenance, the company and their risk assessment and what they're willing to accept. I mean, if you take a company that looks like the DC-10, you know, I mean, the DC-10, look at the safety record versus the KC-10, right? The KC-10 never lost airframe. Is that right?
No. They had one on the ground burn up, but that was
but
not,
never in flight. They had no Class A mishaps in flight.
no.
But look how it did as a civilian airliner.
The Death Cruiser 10, right?
That's right. So, I mean, it just.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, so Andreas, you're probably getting it, you know, what the 7.3 Max or the 7.3 is the most unsafe air. That's skewed also because I don't know the exact numbers, but there's literally like 1 billion 7.3s flying every day. And there's like 12 7.8s flying every day, right? That's obviously made up numbers, but you get the point. So, you know, your 7.3s.
That sounds about right.
but my point is, you know, your narrow, so your A320 series and your 7.3s are the workhorse of the world. And that's, you know, they're numbers wise, it's going to seem like, you know, they're having more incidents.
Well, Gonky also back it up too. Look at the type of flying. 787 is doing one leg, you know, 8 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours, whatever. 7.3s, you know, Southwest, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. You know, you're putting cycles on those airplanes. Cycles are what incurs the highest number of mishaps.
And I mean, takeoff and landing. So a 5-leg day is inherently more dangerous than a long haul 1-leg day because you're the safest in cruise. I mean, statistically. You know, it brings up a point from the horse we beat earlier today about the wings over Dallas, the Texas air show. Dude, I mean, I would be a little bit tired if I had to swap airplanes in the middle of an air show after doing one demo to another. And I would be at the point, if that's the end of the show, where I'm kind of like, you know, I mean, think about the times you've double turned and flown like an intense segment or sortie, and the second time where it's like pattern only, and you kind of drop your pack because this is, you know, look at the F-18 shoot down. That dude was in like the most drop your pack phase of his career and got shot down. Yeah. Stuff happens. Yeah. Not that it was his fault, by all means. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that stuff tends to happen when you're at the lull versus when you're high alert because things are happening rapidly and it's very complicated. Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Good talk. Good talk, Russ.
I agree 100%, man.
Don't be the victim, Gonky.
I feel like I am sometimes.
No, you're never the victim, dude. I'm the victim.
Yeah. No, we got the mental health minute. Don't be a victim. It was we got an email from one of our viewers suggesting it. So I thought we could roll with it. Mover, you want me to kick it off?
Yeah, because I have no idea what this is. So you have to.
As best I can. Yeah. Well, don't be a victim. I think this is actually.
Was there any kind of?
Yeah.
Did they just email you, Gonky, and say, "Don't be a victim, Gonky. Mental health, go."
No. So I'll hold his name back. So let's see here. Let's see. Okay, I have an idea for the mental health minute that I don't recall seeing. It is don't be the victim. What I mean by this, often when something goes against you, you can see yourself as the victim and your mindset begins to expect adversity, and that can turn into a self-perpetuating cycle. Instead of allowing the world is against me mindset to take hold, it's just a case of realizing that it wasn't meant to be and pushing on to the next thing. Now that's his take on don't be a victim. So, I mean, my take on it. Were you going to say something?
If you want me to, I can.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Gonky.
All right. Yeah. My take on don't be a victim is, I think here, especially in the Western world, I see it a lot. So, in business, I deal with people a lot. In real estate, I have tenants and stuff. And, when there's problems that come up, it's always, nobody's willing to take responsibility for anything. And I've said it in the past, right? I read a lot of self-help books. It's even in the Bible as far as taking responsibility. And I play this game of taking responsibility for everything. So for example, even if it's something that seems like it's out of my control, which would insinuate me thinking I'm a victim, let's say, I don't know, my wife gets, if we get in a fight over something.
Careful.
Correct. I'll be careful. We get in a fight over something, right? Well, after the fact, I sit there thinking about it, and it's really easy to be like, well, she, but at the end of the day, I can always think like, what if I was a better husband? And then that thought process starts to take hold. It's like, well, what can I do to be better so that doesn't happen again? And then that leads you down a different road of, the blame game. So instead of actually playing the blame game, now mentally, I'm thinking about how to be better, how to fix the scenario, taking action to do that. And that I have found that actually improves just the way I carry myself and my demeanor. And it is, mentally, it's a way to turn something, negative, positive, and, I always say it's how you handle it. It's, we're about here in the States, we're about to have, a new president, and I'm not talking politics or nothing, but some of the best times of my life were during, the Obama administration. I didn't vote for Obama, right? And during Trump's first term, some of the worst, toughest times of my life were at the end of his administration. And I can sit here like a lot of people do, and you see it on the news, blaming everything on somebody else. The economy sucks because blah, there's no whatever because of blah. But at the end of the day, I had the best time of my life under Obama because of me and the things that I was doing and the steps that I was taking to make those things happen. So, and I was having some of the toughest times of my life, during when Trump was in office because of my decisions. So just taking ownership of that, it's hard to do, but once you get over that hurdle, being like, okay, it's my fault. What could I have done so this didn't happen? It's pretty amazing. You start to go down the road of more positive thoughts, and it helps you to be better. Mover, what do you got?
Yeah, good stuff, Gonky. It's tough following you, man, because you've got a lot of wisdom.
No, I want to hear what you have to say, man.
Well, dude, I lived it. You talk about rough times. I've lived it in a couple different ways. Losing parents, losing careers, health. More recently, in 2022, I've beaten that horse to death. I've said beat the horse to death a lot this episode.
There's a lot of dead horses over there.
A lot of dead horses in the state of Louisiana. But that was a time where I felt like the victim, because in a time in my life that we were already struggling with a transition that was not our fault. A hurricane came through and took out our mission, and nobody was there to help us. Certain actors decided to pile on and made it 10 times worse when I thought we had light at the end of the tunnel. And I felt like the victim for a while. Like I felt like a victim. And the thing about when you feel like a victim is that's a sense of helplessness. That's, the only time I've ever used the words helpless and hopeless was during this time. And that's a huge red flag. In fact, if you talk to people in the industry, mental health, they'll be like, if somebody's doing those words, they're at the edge. And I turned to friends. I turned, Gonky, Doug, Wombat, T-Bear. I turned to people in my inner circle and tried to find a way that I could fight back. And I got a lot of support from that. But obviously, it wasn't what I expected as far as the outcome. But when you're in that victim mentality, that helpless and hopelessness comes through. And what I was looking up when you said, hey, did you have something to say? I found a band during this time that I thought was pretty good, and might not be for everybody, but I thought that they sing a lot of songs about mental health, and it's kind of like this rock band. It's called Citizen Soldier. And I found it because Citizen Soldier is what the National Guard and military, that's what we call ourselves, Citizen Airmen. So, I was listening to it, and they had this song called Victim or Survivor. And it really resonated with me because the lyrics basically say that be born by the battle or just wave a white flag, deciding not to die. That might be all you have. You can make that choice, or you can be your past, victim or survivor. And it doesn't really resonate with some people until you've been there, because you're like, look, I can give up. I can crawl into this fetal position and just die. And that's it. I lost. And I'm a victim. Or you can fight back, become the survivor. And it doesn't necessarily mean fight back against whoever's the perpetrator, because sometimes you're fighting City Hall and it's never going to work. Sometimes it's just you're fighting yourself. You're fighting your own mind into how to move forward, how to move on, how to turn a negative into a positive. And you have to make that decision of whether you're going to just die and be the victim, or you're going to become the survivor. And when you make that decision, the moment you make that decision is the moment you become stronger. And it's the moment that you start the road, because it's not instant, but you start the path of putting whatever it is behind you, because the event's already happened. You've already been victimized. Whatever it was is already in the past. You've stopped the bleeding. And now it's time to start moving forward. And so the only way to do that is circle of friends, mental health professionals. I've talked about the director of psychological help in a squadron. I've talked to, anytime, like I meet with people all the time that feel like they've been victimized. And I tell them when they come to my office, I say, look, the process is the process. I cannot promise results. I cannot promise that this is going to have the outcome that you want. I cannot promise that it's going to be quickly. In fact, it's not going to be quick. But what I can do is tell you that I've heard your concerns, and I will do what I can as an unbiased third party within the limits of the rules and regulations. However, what you need to do now is address it within your own mind, because no matter what someone else does for you, it doesn't matter. You have to stop the bleeding now. And you have to address it in your own mind and not feel like the victim. Because until you do that, it doesn't matter what I do. Because if I say you're right 6 months from now, it's going to be too late. If I say you're wrong 6 months from now, it's just going to pull the scab and it's going to start all over. But if you get right with your situation right now, then it doesn't matter what happens on the bureaucratic side, because it is a bureaucracy. I mean, if you get victimized, somebody breaks into your house, everything that happens after that is too late. You had to stop it right then and there, and then everything after that. So once that happens, you have to learn how to become the survivor and move on and not be victimized and give up. So that's my pitch. hopefully that helped somebody. I don't know. Hopefully it made sense. Doug, what do you got?
This is a good topic. I wanted to say surprisingly good topic, but I'm not surprised anymore. You guys have got a real knack for it. I'm going to come at it from a little different angle in that first I wanted to say, in case anybody doesn't know you guys, these are both two really compassionate individuals. They're not in any way diminishing real victims. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people taking a victim role when they have a choice and can do otherwise, and how it negatively affects mental health. So that was the part that I was reading up on while you guys were talking, is the victim mindset and the extent to which, if you get into that mindset, it can cause you to engage in a lot of unhealthy habits. And I think you guys both pointed to that in the experiential stuff you're talking about, taking a hold of the situation and being mindful and moving on. I connect this a lot with entitlement. People who are victims feel like they're entitled to blaming others, like they're entitled to blaming the universe. And that can lead to a cycle where they'll avoid trying to make change. Depending on their family and friends or their social circle, they might also get a lot of positive feedback from being the victim. Oh, you poor thing. Somebody riding to their rescue. And it can also affect your outlook going forward. I was the victim last time. I'm going to be the victim again. So this whole idea of not being a victim as a mindset is something that can really lead to positive change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a good topic.
Yeah, man. Thanks, dude. Thanks for clearing it up.
Just Doug, to your point, though, I would say that even if something genuinely happens, you have to make that decision too.
Yeah.
Because I would not, maybe I'm biased, because when the stuff that I went through genuinely was stuff.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I don't know that there was much of a decision to not be a victim until I got right with the situation.
Yeah, I think that's probably my specific training. I know I've even said this to you a number of times where you went through something that was, absolutely a very bad thing and you were a victim. And I'll still start out by saying, I don't mean to diminish your experience.
Yeah.
It's usually followed by a but or an and. But the idea of not diminishing somebody's legitimate victim experience is very real in my world.
Yeah. And going back to my current job, sometimes they're the victim, and I've seen it firsthand. You can be the victim. You can have every fact on your side. You can show the code, the title and code that was violated, and the system's going to go.
Yep.
So if you rely on someone else to fix it, then you may find yourself very disappointed, versus if you learn how to deal with it, become that survivor. It just
absolutely. Yeah. And somebody in the comments is mentioning victim blame. And that's kind of where I was at. We're not talking about victim blame here. We're talking about a mindset and recovery.
Yeah. Let's see. Sergeant Will says, I found woodworking did more for my mental health than the damn meds from the VA.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I can show you a 45-pound fur ball that does the same thing for me. I think finding that outlet.
It's like a Wombat and his Wake for Warriors, man, right? An outlet, something to do to keep your mind going.
His red guard.
Yeah.
That he has. He likes. It's a good car. It's cool. John says, one of my favorite quotes, Battlescar Motorsports, by the way, the racing. John says, one of my favorite quotes on topic is, nobody can hurt me without my permission. Mike Tyson.
He's so wise.
Like a miniature Buddha covered in hair. MTB Fanatic says, thanks for the words of wisdom. And that's true. I had to realize I can't change the past, and what I went through has made me the person I am today. I've talked about funneling. That's as unrelated to being the victim, but sometimes you feel like you're being funneled towards stuff, and you might have to go through certain things in order to realize your true potential.
Yep. 100%.
All right. That is the show. Happy New Year.
Don't you keep clicking. Yeah, that's funny.
Well,
First show of 2025.
Bad news. Bad news. Bad news.
What is that?
Huh? It's bad news.
It's
Bad
news.
news.
I don't know, man.
You're not
First-
a nerd, Gonky. You'd never get it.
I'm too busy. man.
Bad news.
It would be
Doug
fun.
gets
It would be fun to have him in that game with us, though.
He gets smoked, dude.
Yeah, that's why it would be fun.
He gets smoked. All right. Well, that's the end of our show. We thank
Yeah.
you, as always,
you.
for joining us on this grand adventure. We will see you next week with our guest,
Noonan.
Lieutenant Colonel
Dan Rooney.
Dan Rooney, Folds of Honor.
It's gonna be awesome.
Um,
he's
yeah.
an awesome dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.
See you
Good night,
guys.
everybody.
Good night.
See ya.
Night, folks.